Hey, welcome everyone. It is now January 5th, 2018. I gotta get used to saying that. It's a little bit strange coming out of my mouth, but I'm really excited. I'm gonna be introducing our first guest of the year, good friend of mine and fellow investor. Why don't you say hello to our audience out there, buddy?
Hey, hi everybody. How are you? Happy New Year.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy New Year. This is Buddy Broome. And I've known Buddy for several years. He's a practicing attorney and also an investor. And he also is quite an instructor these days. He's been teaching a lot of classes to other investors and realtors and things like that about investing and all those things we're going to try to touch on in this show today. But before we get started with that, Buddy, I want to find out more about your background, where you grew up, and then kind of walk people through your history, and then we'll get to kind of the fun stuff after that, where we talk about kind of the creative deals and stuff you've done in a very competitive market in Los Angeles, which I'm just aching to ask you about.
Well, yes, thank you very much, Ellis. I very much appreciate that. And it is funny that I get to talk to you about my history since you're such an instrumental part of it. This is very surreal. Yeah. But yes, my name is Buddy Broome. I grew up in southern New Jersey, South Jersey, and I actually first learned about investing and really creative investing from my dad. My dad told me when he first started out, he was a young attorney. He didn't have any money. didn't have any credit, and he wanted to buy a property, and since he didn't have the money, he asked the person who was selling to him, hey, would you be able to take payments? Can I pay you monthly? And the gentleman said yes. And I remember my dad told me this story, and I think I was in high school, and I thought, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Why would anybody do that? Right. And my dad just sort of looked at me, he's like, I don't know, I just asked him. And anybody who knows my dad would know that he would just like do stuff. Like most people be inhibited from asking. He's just like, yeah, I just asked him. Right. And then he thought about it for a little bit, and a couple seconds later he came back and said, well, he knew me, he knew my reputation, and he assumed he'd get paid back, and he did. He got paid back, and the guy actually approached me later about doing other deals just like that. And so it taught me three really important lessons. I didn't understand at the time, but looking back on it, it taught me three very important lessons. One is ask for what you want, because you might just get it. Right. Two is you can do this business without having any money. I'm not saying it's easy, right? But it's absolutely possible. It's very real to do it without any money. And three, your reputation matters. Right. So the way you treat people really matters. That goes around. And if you treat people well, pay your debts, so on and so forth, that comes around and you get paid. You get rewarded for that. Conversely, if you don't treat people well, so on and so forth, that comes around as well. So really, you want to, do unto others as you have them do unto you. So, so it taught me three really important lessons. And then from there, I went to college at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and then went on to law school at the University of San Diego. Graduated from law school and got a job with a large firm in downtown Los Angeles. Okay. Were you specializing in any particular part of the law at that time? I was just doing general civil litigation. Okay. Yeah. So general civil litigation, mostly defense work. Wow. And so I'm working with this firm downtown, and I'd kind of forgotten everything my dad had ever said to me about investing. Right. Except for the honesty part, I still treated people well, but apart from that, I just wasn't interested in investing. I thought it was just a big waste of time. And just by dumb luck, one day, my wife came across the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and she'd read it, and she's like, "Buddy, you got to read this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's a really great book." Uh-huh. And I was like, no, I'm not going to read that. The book looks terrible. Like it just the color looks just weird colors, and besides, that's not how it works. The way it works is you got to get a good job, and you contribute to your 401k, and then 40 or 50 years later down the road, you ride off into the sunset. That's the way it happens in this world, not with this stuff. And so she's like, I don't know. But so one day she was out, and the book was just on our coffee table, and I picked it up, and I was like, 48 hours later, I was like, my life was completely changed. I'm like, I have to learn about this. And read it all the way through? Is that what happened? Yeah, I just went because it was so exciting. I was so excited reading it. Right. I was like, this is just awesome. The concept just blew my mind. Right. And so from there, I just kept asking people, trying to find people who invested. It was really, really hard to find people who did it. It was hard to find mentors and things like that. And And so finally we took the plunge. So we ended up buying our first property in August of 2008.
Okay.
And that date is significant because Lehman Brothers crashed about a month later. And we literally saw this identical properties on the market for about 60% of the value.
Oh my God.
Overnight. It took about it was very painful. So in 3 to 6 months, you literally saw the same property on the market for 60% of what we bought it for. And it really taught me an important lesson about cash flow. And because that was really what was super painful. So for us to be able to keep it, we had to do a lot of like lifestyle changes. At the time, I'm working as an attorney,
Right.
But we realized, hey, like this thing's negative cash flow. It's a big problem. What are we going to do? Okay, we got to move into it. We got to do this. We got to do that. And we had to really trim our lifestyle, which was good in the end. It was a blessing in disguise, but at the time it was very painful. And but we were fortunate we were able to keep the property. And so then from there, I saw how cheap everything was. I was like, man, like things are super cheap. I gotta do something here. And so it was really cheap. The only problem I had were two problems. One, I didn't have enough money to buy.
Right.
And two, since my last deal, I didn't have any credit. So I couldn't get another loan.
Because you're maxed out on your.
I was maxed out on my loan. So there was no more loans to be had. So
a lot of people would quit right about now, right?
Yeah, I guess. But I think that the Rich Dad Poor Dad book gave me such a why. Like I want to do this. I want to have that financial freedom lifestyle. That's really what I want. I want to have time to live my life on my terms. So I'm like, I got to figure this thing out. So it was just by dumb luck that our mortgage broker, when we bought our first property, told me about this gentleman. He said, oh, you got to meet this guy, Ellis San Jose. And he runs this club called Phoebe, For Investors by Investors, and you got to go there and meet him. So I was like, okay.
What year was this around?
This was 2008. It was surely. He told me this in 2008 when we closed the deal. I might have gone there in 2009. So it was 2008, 2009.
So Phoebe was about a year or two old at this time.
Yeah. It was still pretty. You guys were at Stick and Stein,
That's right.
The restaurant Stick and Stein. It was one chapter, and so we went to the meeting at the Stick and Stein restaurant, which, by the way, has been boarded up for the last 8 years. It's just like a vacant building on PCH.
Yeah.
And so we went there, and I remember it was probably like 15 people, maybe 20 people there, and I loved it because in all my searching for someone who was like a mentor or people who were investing, this was the first time when I was listening to people talk, I'm like, man, these people are really doing it. Like there was no fireworks, no like snappy suits, like everybody's like very like gritty and very like down to earth, and it's like, hey, like, people are talking about doing like crazy deals, like mobile home deals and all this like crazy investing you never hear about. People are talking about, I want those, the properties they go into and they have to put rope around their jean bottoms so that the bugs don't crawl up their legs. I mean, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. This is it. This is my group. And so we came up to you, my wife and I came up to you after the meeting, and we said, hey, Ellis, obviously we've heard about how great investing is, but we stink at it. We didn't do very well at all. Like, what's the catch? Like, what are we missing here? So he said, hey, I'll take you on as mentees. I'm starting to mentor people. And so we started to meet with you. Was it like once a month or once every 2 weeks or something like that over at the El Segundo Library? We go in the reading room. You give us a reading assignment and things to do for the month, and we'd be like, all right, we're going. And so we're going, and you're teaching us the value of getting directly in front of sellers, fixing people's problems, meeting their needs. And so finally, you had for one of your meetings, you had two gentlemen as a guest, Gary Johnston and Clyde Wilson. Right. And you said, hey, Gary and Johnston Gary's from out of town. He's teaching a class this weekend. You guys have to go. That's part of the requirement of the mentorship. You have to go to this class. So I was like, okay. And so we went, and that class literally changed my life. I remember going to that class and be like, now I get it. Now I understand how people buy properties without relying on banks. I understand when people say, oh, I buy on terms rather than price. Right. When I'd hear those things, I was like, I get it. Like, that's it. I understand it now. Now I just have to implement it. And so from there, we went out and made a lot of offers to people, and it was literally like, people would look at us and be like, sort of like pat us on the head and be like, okay, kids, go back to recess. Like, like this isn't going to happen. Good luck, but not going to happen.
Right.
So I was like, okay. And so finally, on December of 2010, we finally got a call from someone and say, hey, we want to sell before the new year. And it was about 2 weeks before the new year, and we went to their home and we met them, sat down with them, met their dogs, the whole bit. Like, I mean, just getting to know what the situation was, where we could add value to their situation. And we left after like about 4 or 5 hours, went back to their home, spent about literally probably like 6 to 8 hours at their home the second time, presented an offer and just going through the terms of the offer. And we finally closed the deal. And the interesting thing about the deal was we closed it for $250,000 over market price. So,
wow.
So when you say it to the average person, they're like, that's stupid. Like,
right.
Why would you do a deal like that? Because
first blush, it sounds like, why are you overpaying for a property, right?
Correct. Like everybody knows in real estate, you make money from buy low, sell high. So we bought exceptionally high.
Okay.
And so, but what we got in return was, because remember, our two problems were we couldn't get bank financing and we didn't have a lot of cash.
Right.
So we were able to get in with the sellers did what's called seller financing. They carried back the note on the deal. Right. And with that, we got terms where we were able to come in with a less than 5% down, and they carried the remainder balance on a 50-year fully amortized note.
Wait. I think people might not understand what they just said. So it was a 50-year note for 50 years. They're going to carry this thing
for 50 years. 50 years they would carry the note fully amortized. So typically you only get 30 years at banks.
Right.
We got a 50 years, so 20 extra years we got on that note.
Right.
And by doing that, we were able to get the property to be cash flow positive from day one. So even though our net worth dropped significantly, right, our cash flow increased the day we closed escrow.
So give us a little idea about what type of property this was and where it was. I mean, this is in Southern California in a very competitive market. So tell me a little bit about the property, how many units, et cetera.
It was a 5-unit building. The property was a Section 8 property. All the tenants were Section 8. And the issue with the property was that it was the tenants weren't in Section 8. The government pays a portion, the tenants pay the other portion. Subsidized, correct. And so the tenants were not paying their portion.
Okay.
And the owners had owned it for a long time, and they lived 2 hours away. It was a long distance haul for them to manage it. Very challenging. So they weren't able to enforce to get the tenants to perform.
Right.
And so that was it. 5-unit building, Section 8.
So they didn't just agree to this with your first contact, right? I mean, how long have you been nurturing this relationship? I think that's
we've had relationships that have gone for a long, long time. This one though was fast. This one was 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
I mean, about 2 weeks. I mean, they called us sometime around December 12th or 15th, and we met with them about 3 days later.
But you had been marketing for a while then, right?
We've been marketing for a while, correct. So they had our letters from our marketing for a long time. So they'd had contact with us, I mean, just through our letters for a year or two.
Right.
But yeah, it was the first time. I mean, this deal was sort of a little bit abnormal for us in that it was so fast. I mean, typically we're building relationships to solve the problem. This one was like, hey, they wanted to sell fast.
Wow.
And so we're like, okay, we gotta, it's go time. And for us, it was kind of crazy because we hadn't done anything. I mean, we're just figuring this thing out, and we're like, how do we do this thing?
Your second deal, right after that first one that you weren't so happy about the timing. This was your second deal.
Correct, exactly. So it was kind of scary in that respect. We were like, whoa, like this is live all of a sudden. We gotta, no more kiddie pool here.
Right, but then it was cash flow positive from day one, right?
Correct.
So that the myth that I hear a lot out there is, in Southern California, it's always about appreciation. You're not going to cash flow for a while. That's a myth that's out there, right? I mean, you probably run across that.
Correct, and I think to an extent, I mean, that has the myth has some merits, but
sure.
Over the bigger deal, the biggest deal of all, like when people are saying that, they're assuming the terms. The terms are already assumed, and when I say terms, I'm meaning how are you going to pay for the property? You're either paying all cash,
right?
Or you're going to get a traditional loan, which is 30 years fully amortized, or 15-year fully amortized, or whatever it is. When you can negotiate the terms of the note, it changes. It allows things that wouldn't be cash flow positive to become cash flow positive.
Right. So what you're saying is that most people will use kind of the in the box thinking, say, okay, I'm going to plug in my 20 or 30 year amortization, and then I'm going to see what numbers fall out, and it's going to be a yes or no based on those numbers. And you're saying, no, let's change the playing field.
Exactly. Yeah, change those numbers up. I mean, people, like you said, they have the computer programs say I can do 30-year notes because that's what the banks allow.
Right.
But if you change it, you say, no, I want to do a 40-year note, a 50-year note, a 70-year note.
Right.
It changes the equation up. It changes the monthly payments, so on and so forth, so that you can adjust, and also you can come in with lower downs to make it happen, and you're not limited.
Right.
You can do this forever. There's no cap on it.
So you've kind of had this knack for finding other deals this way, right? I mean, you've found other deals where you've used kind of non-traditional structures, right, to get deals done and to make them work.
Correct. Exactly. So I mean, I mean, my wife and I just closed another deal recently, and that one took 7 years, and so that was a little bit longer. We were 2 weeks to 7 years,
right.
But that one, I mean, we sat down. I talked to this lady for years, so I knew the situation.
Okay.
And even when we started getting into numbers, it was still like a lot of sitting down. We're like, what about this? No, this won't work for me. What about that? No, this won't work for me. And you just like keep going back and forth. I mean, we went through, I don't know how many scenarios in that deal. And even in both these deals I was talking about, I mean, we were going through so many situations where we're like, this works. No, that, you know. And so, I mean, even our first deal, when we presented our first offer, the owners want us to present the offer over the phone. And we're like, no, we want to do it in person. So we drove out 2 hours to their place and presented it in person. And when we gave them the offer, the first thing they looked at it and they said, gosh, you know, we wish that you told us this over the phone because we would have told you not to waste your time coming out here. And I was like, I was so like
deflated.
So bummed.
Oh my gosh.
So deflated. And thank God my wife was there, and she looked at him and said, hey, is there anything about the offers you like? And they said, we like this one. This one's full price. We like that it's full price. So like, okay, fine. We're just going to we'll focus on that deal, and we'll just see what we can work out from there. And so we just went from there.
So that was really wise for your wife to step in and not say, hey, it's all or none. It's about, okay, what do you like? So you keep the negotiation going.
Correct. I mean, the longer you stay at the table, the better chance you have. So we just want to keep the conversation going because ultimately, I mean, you know this better than anybody. I mean, what our job as investors is to fix people's problems. Right. That's all we're doing is fixing people's problems. And to do that, we have to know what the problem really is. And a lot of times people don't know what the problem is right off the bat. So you got to ask questions. You got to investigate. You got to see, hey, how can I best serve you? Right. And that's what she was doing. She said, hey, like what do you like? And so the longer we can keep that conversation going, the more we can say, okay, what's your pain? What can we do to help you? What's the problem you need fixed?
So the path to getting the deal done is asking a lot of questions and finding out where their pain is. Correct.
Exactly. So so ask as many questions as you can. I joke that when I was a kid, I used to like the show The Joy of Painting with Bob Ross. I don't know if you ever watched that.
Yeah.
And the thing I think that as investors, we're the same as Bob Ross in the respect that anybody who's not familiar with the show is this guy. He had this really like gentle voice, and he would start off with a blank canvas.
He had really big hair.
He had big hair. He had the big hair. And he had a very gentle voice, and he would start off with a blank canvas, and he'd be like, okay, you just put like, I'm going to put a friendly little cloud in this corner, and a nice little bush in this corner, and a friendly little rabbit over here. And by the end, he had a full picture. It was amazing. He went from a blank canvas to a full picture just by doing these little parts. And I was just like, that's amazing. And we're doing the same thing as investors, but our paintbrushes are questions. We have to find out what the problem is, what the situation is, once we have that painting, then we're like, okay, we can finish this painting by being the friendly little cloud over here, or the nice little bush, or the little bunny rabbit, or whatever it is.
I love
finish the painting.
I love that. That the paintbrush is the question. That's great. Yeah. Now, with all your experience now and your learning, I mean, of course, we're always still learning, but you've decided to kind of share a lot of your knowledge. I know you've been teaching classes. You teach a calculator class, and I know you've been teaching classes at some brokerage offices. Tell us a little bit more about why you got into teaching, and if you have any classes coming up, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, I got into teaching because I just love teaching. I was just like, when I was a kid, I was like, oh man, there's like, it was sort of a debate. I was like, oh, do I want to become, go and be an attorney or become a teacher? Like it was really like something I was like, I'd be a football coach and a teacher. I'd be like, oh, that'd be great. And so, so I just really enjoy teaching, and I'm part of a number of masterminds out here. And, typically with masterminds, one person leads the group, every month is someone different. And whenever I lead it, I'd be like, okay, let's do these calculator problems. These are questions that people have on investing or how cash flow works or so on and so forth. And this is, and so I give it to people, and people loved it. I was like, wow, like people were really into it. And it was funny because and then we have it at I had like a birthday party, and I'd be like, okay, guys, we're going to do calculator problems. And people were like, what?
So when you say calculator, this isn't kind of your, your standard math. What type?
Not your standard math. Yeah. It's a financial calculator. So we're
huge distinction, right?
Huge distinction. Yeah. So it's not four-function math. It's able to see like cash flow and time value of money and everything like that. And investors and mortgage brokers and people like that use it to understand investments and understand mortgages. And so, and people were into it. I was like, man, like this is great. It's the nerdiest birthday party ever, and people are really into it. Right. And my wife would keep encouraging me. She's like, you should teach a class on this. I'd be like, nah, I don't know if anybody would really want to go. Like, I don't know. And then finally, I'm like, fine, I'm just going to do it. And so I put together, every night for like 15 minutes, I put together a little part, and these are the things that I think if I went back in time, talk to myself, or if I was teaching my child, like, hey, these are the important things I think you've got to know about cash flow and investing and things like that. This is how I break it down, and it goes from like very basic talk about like car loans, to gym memberships, all the way to how to buy properties without banks or lease options or seller financing and all this stuff.
You're basically walking somebody, taking them by the hand through the path that you think would make sense, right?
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. So it's like we start with the basic stuff, like, okay, how does this work in everyday life? And then how we take those same principles, transform them into, hey, how do I buy properties without needing banks or money?
You know what I love, because I've been reading a lot of your blogs and articles. You talk a lot about that, a lot of kind of the everyday financial situations that a lot of people don't have any idea how to approach, like the cost of college, right? Mm-hmm. Should I pay off my mortgage? Questions like that when you're armed with knowledge in the financial calculator, you could actually make a very objective decision.
Correct. And that's, I mean, like when we're investors, we're trying to take everything down to A and B.
Right.
Do I want to go left or do I want to go right? Yep. And so we're trying to take like a situation that's pretty complex and chop it up so we just have that left and right decision. And there's all these financial decisions we face in everyday life. Like you said, cars, I write about car loans. I just wrote a huge blog on college, on how to analyze college like you would an investment.
Right.
Because when I hear people talk about college, they're like, I just took out a $50,000 loan, but it's an investment because it's for my education. And I'm like, well, if you took out a $50,000 loan for real estate or for stocks, it wouldn't necessarily be an investment. Like it could be really bad investment.
Right.
And so you had to figure out some way to be like, this is a good deal or a bad deal. And so, so I try to take those same principles and say, hey, this is how you apply it to everyday life so you can make educated decisions going forward with your own life.
That makes a lot of sense. So you're trying to kind of take the emotions out of the decision and say, okay, if we just look at it purely as a financial model, right?
Correct.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So do you have any classes coming up that you want to tell the audience about?
Yeah, I do. Well, first of all, I'm speaking at a couple local investment clubs here in Southern California. I'm speaking at the Coachella Real Estate Investors Association out in Palm Springs on February 13th. You can find that club on meetup.com. And then I'm speaking at the Invest Club in Fullerton on February 21st. Wednesday, February 21st, and you can find out about them at reinvestclub.com. And then I'm teaching my class. I haven't taught a class in a year and a half, so I'm really, really excited about this. I haven't had a class open to the general public in a year and a half, and I'm teaching at in Long Beach, all-day class, 8:30 to 5:30. Calculate Your Way to Financial Freedom is the name of the class,
right.
And the class is we go over everything. We go over how to make these intelligent, how to take, like I said, start with the basics. Like, hey, in your everyday life, you're faced with this decision. How do you know to go left or right?
Uh-huh.
And we keep building off that until eventually, hey, how do I figure out how big my nest egg is? How do I get there? How do I get the returns that are needed?
Right.
Because to get to this $1 million, $2 million, or $3 million nest egg that I need to live my life financially free, and then how to get the assets to build that nest egg, and how to do it.
Real numbers, right?
What's that?
So you put some real numbers to that.
Yeah, everything is like real numbers. It's not like a fluff class or yay, like it's like, hey, these are real numbers, and this is all based off stuff that I've done, based off stuff that you've done, friends of ours have done. Like, this is real, actual stuff, and that's applicable, that you can use. And like you said before, I mean, we're in Southern California. Like, the markets don't get any hairier than out here, and they work out here. Like, right. The market is very tough, and these techniques still work out here. So they can work pretty much anywhere. And so that class is March 3rd. It's entitled Calculate Your Way to Financial Freedom. The price is $199 per person. You get a $25 discount if you enter the code FIBI, F-I-B-I. And also the sign-up price includes this. You get a Hewlett-Packard financial calculator for free, included with the price of admission, and it's 8:30 to 5:30, and to learn about it, to sign up or to learn more, you can visit my website at buddybroome.com, BUDDYBROOME.com, and when you go there, also I give away a free investing real estate evaluation and introduction to seller financing booklet.
I saw that, and that's how to evaluate a rental property. Is that what? That's
correct. Yeah, because it was funny. Like, I sort of came upon that. People would always say, like, "Well, I got this deal. I got this really good investment," and I'm like, "Okay, well, what makes a good investment?" And they tell me, and like, oh, it's near a nice school, or it's it's got really nice brick outside, and I'm like, that doesn't necessarily make a good investment.
All the fluffy stuff, right?
All the fluffy stuff that people talk about when they buy their home. And so I'm like, that's nice, but that's not going to make it necessarily a good investment. It could be or could not be. So I put together about like a 25-page guide that says, hey, these are the things when I'm looking at an investment that I think are good, and this is the stuff that I'm like, stay away from.
Right.
And it's pretty comprehensive. It's not like overwhelming. Like I said, it's 25 pages. You can get through it pretty fast. And then I also have an introduction to seller financing, so you can see how the numbers work in a basic seller financing deal, so you can get an idea of the concept. So that's on my website. You can get that for free. I give that away for free, and you can just go and read my blog. I write a lot of stuff on,
I love
investing philosophy and things like that. So, yeah.
That's great. So it's www.buddybroome.com, BUDYBROOME.com. That's right?
That's right. And you can contact me through there as well if you want to get in touch with me.
That's awesome. One of my favorite, and we'll end with this just for laughs, one of my favorite articles that you put out, or I don't know if you just shared something, was the whole to do about Bitcoin and how it's not
that one.
Oh my God, I just laughed my butt off when
that one was funny because when I put that one out there, I was like, oh man, I know some people are going to go off on me on that one. That one is going to get some conversation going. And like I said, I mean, I think that Bitcoin is a speculation.
Right.
Is it a currency? What are the governments going to say about it? Like, the price is very volatile. Nobody's using it as a currency. So it could be you could become a billionaire, or you could be,
right?
Nothing. Yeah, exactly. So as long as you understand what it is that you're dealing with, I feel like,
go for it.
But just be conscious of what it is, and don't be sort of sucked up in the mania. Just be conscious of that. So, yeah.
That's perfect. Hey, buddy, I want to thank you for being our very first guest for 2018. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm honored. Thank you, Ellis.
Yeah. And if you get a chance, please follow Buddy on all his channels, because he has some great stuff to say and really well thought out. And we'll be back here again next Friday with another great guest. So I want to wish everybody a happy weekend and happy investing out there. Take care, guys.
Yep. Thank you, Ellis.
There you go. Did I catch you off guard with the Bitcoin question?
No, it was good. It was good. Are we off air now?
Yeah, we got about 10 seconds, and I'll tell you when we're on.
Okay. No, but that was good. I was like, oh, that works. It was a good when I put that up there, I remember I was like, oh man, this was going to get some people fired up. So it was good. It was entertaining for me.